So I started out as an actor. My training is in acting. I have a master's degree from the National Theatre Conservatory, and I got my degree both in acting and writing from undergrad. And I was working as an actor, and what I realized, at least for me personally as an actor, was that I'm a control freak, and I wanted more control over the creative process. And even though oftentimes the writer is subject to producer's notes and director's notes, the creativity originates with the writer. The writer is the one who's putting the story on paper, and I feel like has the most ownership of the creative whole, especially in television, which is why I think I focused my writing there. And so as soon as I sort of figured that out, I immediately jumped ship from New York, because I hated living in New York, and came to LA, where I sort of committed fully to the writing that I had been doing for years, but sort of made that my priority instead of my acting career. And I was working a day job as an editorial, for a nutrition company, for a protein bar company, and I would get up at about 5 a.m. every day, and I would go to the gym, and then I would write from about 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. when I started my job, and that's when I wrote REDSHIFT, which was the sort of first script I had that won an award, and that was the ISA's prize. So many things I've done. I feel like everybody's done so many things wrong, but also I don't know that I would give myself any advice, honestly, because the mistakes that we make are the things that make us who we are. And so if I were to give myself advice to avoid those mistakes, I don't think I would become the person who's learned from those mistakes. So I actually think, even though I probably do have advice, I wouldn't give it because I need to make the mistakes. A lot of the competitions I feel like in LA, I don't know, they're bullshit. Can I say that? Can I say that in here? And there's a lot that are more than just competitions. And I think it's actually kind of hard to sort out the difference between the two. So I did a lot of research on which competitions were just sort of ego boosts and which competitions were really about advancing your career. And everything that I had read and heard about the ISA really convinced me that the ISA is on a mission to get behind writers and advance writers' careers. So it's not just a money-making scheme, as I think, unfortunately, a lot of competitions are. It really is an institution that exists first and foremost for writers and to push them forward. And so for the ISA, it seems to me like these competitions are a way of gathering the talent that they believe in so that they can get behind them. So that the competition wasn't, you win the competition and then it's over, you win the competition and then it's begun. I mean, I was just sort of poo-pooing the ego boost before, but it's a great ego boost to start off, which is nice. And I do think it gives you credibility walking into a room. I was actually just thinking about this. I have a project right now that has a producer attached, and we're sort of shopping around for a director. And I was just sending an email, and I was thinking about that on the way over, that before I think I would have been really apologetic about sending the email and asking for someone's time. But one of the things about having this sort of stamp of approval from the ISA, in addition to some other stamps of approval on your resume, is I've sort of stopped feeling like I need to apologize for taking up air. I feel like, oh, I've put in the time, I've sort of proved my skills, at least to a certain extent. I know I have a lot left to learn because I think lifelong learning is the only thing that makes a storyteller continue to tell good stories. So I have a ton left to learn, but I finally, I feel like reached a point where I can stop apologizing for my presence. It's been really nice. Everything that I had heard and thought about the ISA turned out to be true, and then some. I mean, Felicity, you are the biggest champion of writers, and I know you are working your tail off to make sure your writers get seen and get into rooms and get read, it's nice knowing you have a champion, especially right now when there's so much up in the air with writers in terms of representation and in terms of access. Having somebody who believes in you is huge, and I think it has helped me with credibility with various producers and with just getting people to pay attention to my writing so that they're willing to read it. So I've got a producer on a feature script that I'm working on. I've got producers attached to a TV script that I'm working on. I think because of a lot of these things, I have friends that I went to grad school with who run a theater company in San Francisco, and I think because of all this, that's why they reached out to me, and so I wrote a play for them. that was then nominated for a Theater Bay Area Award just this past summer. And then I've adapted that play into a pilot most recently. And so, yeah, I think it's just given me a little bit more of a leg up in terms of people taking me seriously. I mean, this is where I'm going to get real for a second. So my mom just passed away. We were just talking about this, which is hard for me. She was my biggest inspiration, and I have a project that I wrote with her that is one of the projects that has producers attached. It's the guys who created The Fosters and Good Trouble, Brad Bredwig and Peter Page. They are attached to executive produce this pilot, and so it used to be something that was very important to me for the story and for a piece of writing, and because it's a project that's close to my heart because I wrote it with my mom. And I think now it's going to become sort of my mission to get that made because it was her passion project. She brought it to me. She was the one who wanted to get it made. It was her lifelong dream to tell this specific story. It's a story about the first woman lawyer in the West who broke down all these barriers for people who came later. And I think it's a story that now more than ever I am determined to make sure it gets told.